From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tanoory, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back. Dr. Jason here, Dental Lighthouse Podcast. Super excited about my guest today. Repeat offender to the Dental Lighthouse Podcast show, soon-to-be Dr. JD Fulls. JD, welcome back to the program, brother.
Jason, thank you for having me. I'm glad that I could be a repeat offender. I didn't get blacklisted from the last time I was here.
No doubt. Now you're, I think we split your interview up into two parts and just got tons of great feedback from it. And a bunch of people reached out to me, wanted to connect with you. So if you guys have not heard those two episodes, go back and listen to them. I do not recall what episode numbers they are, but I'll put them in the show notes. And for those of you guys that don't know who JD is, fourth year dental student at the Ohio State University, has just done an amazing job in preparing himself for the real world. Has developed lots of connections with people in my network, and we're just talking off camera of hopefully has a position lined up in the great state of Texas. So things are moving and shaking for JD, and I would expect nothing less just based on how ambitious he is and how he's just kind of dove into learning everything that he could learn. Today, we're going to mix things up a little bit on the podcast. JD is going to ask me some questions about how certain situations should get handled, maybe some experiences that he's lived through. And I'm excited to not have clarity on what's coming at me, and hopefully off the cuff be able to answer them just based on my own lived experience. So I'm nervous yet excited. So let's do it.
No, Jason, you're going to do fine. And for the record, I did send him some notes of what I was going to ask. So I'm not just asking him random questions that he has no idea what's coming. It's hopefully very pointed questions on a topic that we've already discussed. So hopefully he's had a chance to think about these before. But Jason, thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me back again, man.
Yeah, no doubt. We're going to spend a lot of time asking questions on two surface fillings. So if that doesn't excite you, that you can tune out. No, I'm just joking. We're going to talk about nothing similar to two surface fillings. But yeah, I'm excited. So let's get right at it, brother.
Yeah, Jason. So I can set the stage for the listeners, kind of what we were saying offline. So basically, guys, what I wanted to talk to Jason about was I've been listening to his podcast, and a lot of the topics that he's been covering recently have been like centered around leadership, those kinds of situations, practice ownership. And one of the topics that kind of comes up as a component of leadership is feedback. So I kind of just wanted to take a deeper dive into that particular aspect of leadership, and some of the nuances that maybe can't get covered in a 45-minute podcast discussion on leadership as a whole. Jason's got a lot of other great podcasts that I'm sure people have listened to. So if you haven't listened to those episodes about leadership, I would definitely recommend checking those out as well. Some things that maybe you can't get to in that period of time. So basically the thing that kind of started getting me thinking about this was, as I've started to learn more and more about leadership, is I've been trying to do a better job of being in positions of leadership to give feedback and also receive feedback. Working at some private practice offices throughout my time in school, you get feedback from those doctors that work there. And then you also get to see the way that those owner docs interact with their team members, whether it's hygienists, other associates, things like that, how they're giving and receiving feedback. So I just kind of wanted to talk about those. There were some things that had piqued my interest and dive into that. So, Jason, if I could kick it off, I think the thesis of what I'm trying to get at is creating a culture of feedback. How do you do that, and kind of who is responsible? And then I've got some more even deeper level questions. But just setting the stage of being able to have people who are willing to receive feedback and create an environment where when you give feedback, it's coming from a place of they're willing to receive it and they know that it's a good place versus you're just being critical of them.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I was hoping for like a softball early on in this interview, but like you're just going right for the jugular, brother. Like, like let's just get right into it.
Let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it, brother. Yeah. So a lot to unpack there, right? So, um, as you know, I'm a huge proponent of feedback. I feel that feedback, or how the term I like to use is honesty, the servant leadership principle of honesty, right? So honesty is defined as to tell the truth and be free from deceit. So if we come across someone that's in need of feedback, then hopefully we're trying to create a culture where feedback is readily given and received, and it's given from a position of love and empathy, and it's also received from a position of, okay, you're giving me feedback because you're ultimately trying to make me better. So that's the first thing, right? So I think that has to be over communicated. Like we're an office or we're a team that strives on feedback, because honesty and feedback is a basic human need. You go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's just not fair to have someone on our team or a coworker that we're not willing to give feedback to. In fact, you've probably heard me say it's arguably selfish to know someone's not meeting an expectation, to know that they need feedback, and you as the leader, owner, coworker, not not willing to develop the courage to have that conversation. The only person that benefits when you cannot find that courage to have that conversation is you, because you didn't have to develop the courage. The person that could have used the feedback certainly doesn't get better because they didn't know what the gap was. The business doesn't get better, the patient experience doesn't get better, all that. I think the first thing that you need to do is have clarity on what we're giving feedback on, right? So, you guys have probably heard me say it's not fair to give out speeding tickets if the speed limit is not posted, right? So the first thing from my perspective is we got to be crystal clear with the rules of the house, right? And the rules of the house for me are core values, having them listed and well defined, and then making sure that the roles and responsibilities of each particular person is very, very dialed in. There's no ambiguity. So we can create a fictitious scenario if you want, JD, or we can kind of go off of that. But in my opinion, just kind of breaking it down, be absolutely clear with the rules of the house, right? How do we expect people to behave? Core values, what are the roles and responsibilities of the person that we're talking about? And then make sure that we're maintaining a culture of feedback and accountability, and it's not something that comes out of left field. Like people know, even through the interviewing process, like we are an office, we are an organization of constant peer-to-peer accountability, constant feedback. We're ultimately trying to grow each other. And then, excuse me, and then making sure that you actually deliver on what you say you're going to do. So I'll stop there, and maybe we can peel back the onion a little bit
Yeah.
more based on kind of that
Yeah,
foundation.
absolutely. I think I can definitely build on that. So I think part of what my kind of where my brain goes is I've definitely heard you talk about like a lot of those the principle of honesty and the feedback, the into the storm conversations, the rules of the house. Those are all great. And then for me, it's just part of where I'm struggling is getting someone like ready to receive that feedback, if that makes sense, in the sense that you might do the best job ever. You might be coming from the most place of care possible. You feel like you've communicated the expectations, but this person is they're just not ready to receive feedback. Like, is there any way that you feel like you can prime your people that they're ready to receive that feedback and not take it personally, but they're kind of, receiving it in a healthy way, if that makes sense. I don't know if you feel like you've already answered that, or maybe there's another level that we could dive into there.
Yeah, no, I think there's another level. Repetition is the mother of all learning. So, for me, let's let's try to make it as black and white as possible. Feedback is needed to be given if either it's a behavioral value issue or if it's a competency issue, right? It's easy to say that they're not meeting the expectations, right? That's clear. But then we have to break it down into which set of expectations are not being met. Are they behaving the wrong way? For example, they're not being honest, they're gossiping, they're passive aggressive in their communication, they're late, behavior type things.
Yeah.
Or or is it a competency issue where let's use a dental assistant. The expectation is to make a clinically acceptable temporary crown in 15 minutes, and it's taking your assistant 30, right? So
Yeah.
in both of those situations, there's an expectation not being met. It's been my experience that it's a hell of a lot easier to have the feedback and accountability conversation when it's a competency issue, when it's a roles and responsibilities thing, versus when it's a value behavior thing. Both extremely important, but it's just been easier for everybody, owners, teammates, to give feedback on the roles and responsibilities. So let's start there. Um, so I'm always starting these conversations from a position of curiosity. So when there's a little bit of time, let's say ideally at the end of the morning before lunch, at the end of the day before we go home. If it's something that's not super pressing, it could be at the one-on-one. Um, it starts with, hey Mary, I know that you're trying really hard to get your temporaries dialed in, but what we're currently doing is just not working. We need to make sure that these temporaries are made clinically acceptable, good contours, good occlusion, fit well in a little bit more of a timely manner, traditionally about 10 to 15 minutes. And I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 temporaries you've made, it's been in that 30 to 40-minute range. So I just want to have a conversation with you if you're open to it. Help me understand what you need from me in an effort to get these temporaries from where you're currently at to where they need to be. And it could be Mary's response could be anything, right? It could be something like, "Oh, I had no idea that the expectation was to get it done in 15 minutes. Now that I'll stop, putzing around." Or it could be, I get it. I'm really struggling with that, and I feel like I wasn't trained well, or I feel like I don't get enough guidance, or I feel like, dot dot dot. So whatever Mary's response is to you going to them again from a position of curiosity and saying, help me understand why there's this discrepancy here. Help me understand what you need. Um, you should be able to address that. Like if it's simply, oh, I didn't know, perfect. Now you know. If it's simply, oh, I wasn't trained well enough, perfect. Let's find some dedicated time over the next couple of weeks to get you trained up to become more efficient at that. Um, so is that landing well, JD, from a position of like, we'll call it a competency issue, but basically there's a specific task that this person's responsible for based on the seat that they're in, and they're not able to perform that task, but going to that person and to have a feedback or accountability conversation should be fairly straightforward if you're comfortable going at it from that lens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think that, I definitely heard you talk about that before. And the more that I'm hearing it, like the more it makes sense, definitely in that scenario. I just think it could be very challenging, like especially what you're saying on the other side of not a competency thing, but more of a behavioral issue. With a competency, I think what you're getting at is it's black and white. It's, hey, this is the expectation. It's not personal. It's just, this needs to be done in 15 minutes. Need you to do that. They're like, listen, I get it. I need to be faster versus something more personal behavior. It feels like you're attacking them as a person. And I feel like that's when people are more likely to get defensive. And personally, I'm open to feedback. You can tell me straight up to my face. You can tell me, hey, that's not good enough. You don't need to warm me up. You don't need to do anything. But I feel like there are some people that they just, they can't hear that right away. In certain demographics, maybe they're not as likely to want to just receive that direct feedback. And I guess it's just priming them to hear that. And I think what you're getting at with the kind of the open-endedness of your approach, I think is great. And I guess, if you kind of just do that repeatedly over the years, that would develop. Is that kind of fair to say that it would help develop that culture?
Yeah, two couple things. So 100% agree with you that the competency conversation, the competency feedback conversation is much, much easier to have. It's much more black and white. And team members are either going to get it or they won't. I mean, it's like, okay, these are the rules. Like, and again, the rules are you need to make a well-contoured, well-fitting temporary in 15 minutes. Now, I'm not going to take a hammer and be like, if you don't figure this out within the next week, you're fired. No, that's just not how we do it. Now, it may get to that point after the fourth or fifth time I'm having this conversation, but early on in the feedback loop, it's what do you need from me? Where it's extreme ownership. It's where have I failed you? What do you need more so from me so you can meet this expectation? And anyone that is going to give you pushback on that is arguably not a good fit. And I hate to use this word because I think it gets thrown around a lot, but is a little bit of a narcissist, is a little bit of like um, a victim, is a little bit of a, well, I can't, that won't work here or what have you. So I think that part of the conversation is much, much easier. When it comes to the core value part of it, in theory, it's the same thing, right? The first thing is, do we know the rules of the house? And you've heard me say, we have to clearly lay out what our value system is. We have to clearly define what our value system is. For example, when we say, okay, one of our core values is humility, well, what does that really mean, right? Like people
Yeah.
can say they're full of humility and have a completely different definition. So when we're posting the speed limits, when we're posting, okay, this is the value system that we're going to live by in this organization, we have to be over the top descriptive in what that looks like. And for us, we have 9 core values, and each one of them have a 4 to 5 sentence description. So it's pretty darn clear of what it means to have an ownership mindset, what it means to be a team player, what it means to have impact and influence in the work that you do on a regular basis. So, but now let's say we have to go to Mary, who is struggling at one of those things. Again, it's kind of the same from me, right? And I'm certainly not suggesting that I'm the only one. This is the only way to do it, but it's kind of the same thing. And again, a private conversation, certainly not in public. It's when you have enough time to do it. It's, Mary, I've been noticing dot dot dot, and let's say it's gossiping. Let's say it's gossiping, right? Mary, I want to make you aware of a situation that I've been noticing over the last couple of weeks. It's been clear to me that there's some gossiping going on in the office, and it's apparent that you're at the middle of it. It's apparent that you like to stir the pot, that you need to be in everyone's business. And I got to be honest with you, I'm worried about what this behavior is going to bring for you because when you behave that way, it certainly doesn't do anything for you or for the organization to get closer to success, or the term that we use is winning. So I just need to understand why you feel like you need to do this on a regular basis and how you feel that this level of gossiping is helping us win, is helping us become more successful. Because I would argue that it's doing the exact opposite. So help me understand why you feel like you need to behave this way. I really need to get some clarity on it. And then you shut up and then you play chicken, right? And so the next person
Yeah.
that talks loses. But that's been my strategy when it comes to having difficult feedback conversations regarding a behavior type issue.
Yeah, and I also do remember, I will say there's probably, if you have been listening to Jason's podcast, he's probably going to say a lot of things that he's already discussed before, and I'm going to sound like I'm just not listening to him. I promise I am listening. I just have some questions that kind of like come into my mind, and maybe it's just like small nuances. Maybe it's just not clicking for me. But if it sounds like he's just repeating himself, I apologize if I'm asking any dumb questions. But and then I do remember, you would say discussing how when they do those particular behaviors, how that affects other people as well, how it affects the team and our ability to win. When you're late, that makes us look unprofessional. It makes other people have to do more work than what they're responsible for, those sorts of things. So like, I totally get that. And I guess now that I'm talking to you more, part of what my question would be is how are we setting the speed limit? How are you setting the speed limit in your office? Because I feel like probably when you have the speed limit set really well, it creates an environment where it's very easy to create or to give feedback. They're ready for it because the speed limit's set. How do you feel like you guys go about setting the speed limit? And what recommendation would you give to someone who's maybe an associate in an office where they feel like they can't set the speed limit? Part of this comes from as a student, I feel like I don't have a lot of control over said speed limit. And when I try to give feedback, you know, maybe the speed limit was never discussed. Is it my place to give the speed limit? Am I the one who's responsible for setting the speed limit? And we're kind of getting into another component of what I wanted to talk about. But yeah, just do you have any advice on how to set that speed limit and how you might approach that situation if you weren't an owner or if you weren't in an established practice where that's already been discussed so much?
Yeah, super good question and a very relevant one. So the easy answer is if the speed limit's not clear, then we have to be clear about it, right? Easier said than done. So you may be an associate at this practice in Texas, and the owner runs a tremendously quote unquote successful practice based on revenue, but maybe the culture, the morale, and everything else is like for shit, right? So it's easy to say, it's easier for me to say to you, JD, just go talk to the owner and say, hey, owner, I think need to be more dialed in with the rules of the house or what the speed limit is. And the owner, if he doesn't have this mindset, is going to laugh at you and he's going to be like, what are you talking about? We're doing $250,000 a month. I'm making money hand over fist. What do I care? Right. And not to suggest that his opinion is right or wrong, it's just his opinion. And if he's choosing to run a organization that way, that's his own prerogative. I would guess that running an organization that way comes with turnover. It comes with resentment. It comes with gossip. It comes with prima donnas on the team and stuff like that. And I practiced that way for a handful of years before I realized there's got to be a better way to do it. So the easy answer is to say, well, if the rules of the house or if the speed limit's not posted, then post the speed limit, right? Then be crystal clear. So that's what we do, and we revisit it all the time. So we talk about it at a minimum at quarterly meetings. We'll literally spend a half hour going around the room and saying the core values out loud. Why is this important to us? What does winning look like for us? We'll spend time at morning meeting suggesting, Mary exhibited this core value yesterday. Let's celebrate her. June celebrated this core value with how she interacted with her patient the day before. Let's celebrate that. So it's constantly top of mind. So that's that. Once you get it rolling, it's easy. But to answer your question at the next level, if I was an associate at a practice where the owner or the leadership team didn't value these rules like I do, I would probably go to the owner and I would, again, from a position of vulnerability, I would ask permission. I would say, hey, there's a handful of values that are really important to me. Teamwork, humility, trust, integrity, whatever you want to say, right? Clinical excellence. Would you be open to me talking to the specific people that I work with on a daily basis, my two assistants, the hygienist that you have me checking, and take them out to lunch and let them know that these values are really, really important to me. I would like you to keep me accountable to these values. And at the same time, with your permission, I'd like to keep you accountable to these values. Because I do feel that if we could all behave this way, it's going to lead to just a better workday, more fulfillment, better patient experience, better communication amongst our pod. I would go to the owner and I would say, are you cool with that? And then the flip side of that is if the owner's like, no, I don't want you doing that. I don't want you bringing it. Then you got to ask yourself, like, is this the place where I want to work?
Yeah.
So that's how I would probably address it if I was an associate where these things weren't dialed in. Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tanoory, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.